Hi everyone. Today we're going to format that spending diary. You can get this document by going to your Aspen page and logging in to the personal finance or the 7th grade link. There's a couple of places to get there and I'll show you that in class. So down at the bottom there are a number of instructions from adjusting the height of our columns, which are indicated with numbers. Sorry, our rows are indicated with numbers, or 1, 2, 3, 4. And our columns have letters. So if I said I wanted to go to cell F11, it would look like this. In highlighting a cell, it becomes the active cell. So in addition to giving you some information and showing you how to do these instructions today, I'm also going to be teaching you some other useful things you need to know about formatting a spreadsheet. So this is cell F11, the column is F, the row is 11. If I wanted to select a cell range, I would start in the first cell, F11, and I would select through the range, and this would be J16, F11 through J16. And I would write that cell range with a F11 through J16. I'm just going to come over here to J16 and highlight through F11. And that's the cell range, and it's written with the colon in between. That we might refer to in a little bit later. So in order to adjust this document and to make all these changes, first we have to understand what the mouse does and where the mouse is. Notice as I move the mouse to different places, I sometimes get a hand, I have a left-facing arrow, I have a double-sided arrow, and the same thing occurs when I go up to the columns. And what we click, so our left click and right click makes a great difference too. Our left click allows us to drag something and expand something when we have the double-sided arrow. If I right click, I often get a list of shortcuts that are really important to us. So let's go along and let's start to think about our first set of instructions here. So the first thing we want to do is for row 1, notice where my mouse is, right in the center of the row, because I want to highlight the whole row. And across the top you'll see the blue bar. So that shows all the way across that I have highlighted the whole row. And I want to adjust the height for the whole row. Now when I put my mouse back over the 1, I get the hand. And then I am going to right click. And I'm going to resize that row. And I want the height of that to be 45. And see how it makes the height of that row a little higher. The font size, you should be familiar with changing font size, is up on our toolbar here. This is a toolbar. These are called tabs along the top. And 16 isn't an option, but what we'll do is we'll just highlight that number and change it to 16. The next thing we want to do, because when we're formatting, when things are aligned, where things appear in the cell, we're going to put this title, which is our first row here, the spending diary, which we will be creating and using later. We want to center that vertically. Up here I have a horizontal alignment. You know how I put my mouse over it? It tells me what it is. And I have vertical alignment. I want to change that to center, and look what happens to the spending diary, where it's located in that cell when I do that. Oh, I was not on the cell, sorry. You have to be highlighted in the cell, and it puts it right in the middle of the cell. And then right now it's horizontally aligned left. This is horizontal alignment, and that's to the left side of the page. I could put it in the center and right align. We're not going to worry about that. I'll show you that a little bit later. And eventually we will merge the cells along the top, but right now we're not going to do that. So based upon what we just said, you should be able to do row number 2. I want you to pause. You might have to go back and review, pause the video, And try this first instruction for row 1, and then try row 2 on your own, and I will come back in a minute, or you can come back, and when you hit play, I'll show you how to do row 2. Alright, welcome back. Row 2, same thing. I highlight the whole row. I right click. I select Resize Now, and that is a left click. And I resize the height from 24 to 50. I'm going to change the font size of everything in that row to 14, which is a given. I'm going to place everything in the middle of its cell. I'm going to vertically align its center. I'm also going to horizontally align this. When we have our subtitles or subheadings, it's best that they're in the middle. It just makes it clear that this is going to be a sort of our titles. I'm going to bold those two. And I'm also going to bold the spending diary. Don't worry about the category. We're going to take care of that in a minute. And our text is wrapped. And let me show you the difference. I'm going to highlight that whole row. See up here, text wrapping options? I can go through, it goes right across the cell border, and notice what happens here. Yeah, it's hard to read, right? I can click on cell E2 and go up to this bar here is called a formula bar. It tells us what is actually written in the cell, and it tells me that spending debit, which is a debit, is in this cell. I can also sort of cut it. It looks similar there. And it would just cut it off. It depends on what other text is around it. But for the subtitles in row 2, I want the text to be wrapped, which is this hooked looking arrow. You need to pause for a minute and make sure you have row 1 and row 2 completed. Pause and practice that, please. All right. Now, our next step is column A, D, E, F, G, and H. I want to horizontally align center. Remember, our horizontal alignment is here, and that affects where stuff is located. This is in the center of the cell. This is left aligned presently. So I can do each column. I can highlight column A, go down, and adjust it. Don't worry about spending diary. We'll fix that later. And don't worry about the instruction. But if I had 1,000 rows that I wanted to adjust, 1,000 columns, that would take a long time. So there's a shortcut I can use. I can highlight column A. I can hold down my control key and then skip over and left click on column D. Notice my arrow is the left facing arrow. Left click on E, F, and I can also just click and drag. Oh, it didn't do it for me, sorry. Let me do that again. Click on A, hold down my control key, and go to D, E, F, G, and H. And let me horizontally align that text center. Pause. Try to do that yourself. The trick to highlighting your cells is just where your mouse pointer is. Make sure you're in the center over the column and click. Alrighty. Take a moment, try that. So up here with row 1 and row 2, we adjusted our height for the rows. Well, we want to do the same thing for columns A, B, and D, and we want to resize them. So in order to do that, give yourself a minute. I want you to think about how you would do that. If to do the row, we highlighted the row, then left click, we're going to apply that same skill to the columns. We're going to highlight the column A, and then I'm going to right click. I'm going to resize that column, and I'm going to resize it to 100. Then I'm going to do the same thing with columns B and D, and I'm going to use my shortcut. I'm going to highlight column B, hold down my control key, and then left click on column D to highlight that. I'm going to notice I have that hand. I'm going to right click. And every now and then it doesn't do what you want it to do. I'm going to click off of it. D, right click. Resize the selected columns. That was there all along. That was my bad. Sorry. And I'm going to resize those to 100. Now I would like you to try to do column C on your own and resize that to 225. Pause the video and try. How did you do? Highlight C. You can also hit the down arrow and go to resize, and we're going to resize that to 225. We're almost done with our instructions, but once we're done, I'm going to show you a few other things that you're going to need in order to format our table. You might notice our table is starting to look a little neater. Organizing our tables make it easier for viewers to read and understand the data that's in our cells. All right. We have a few more columns. I think you guys can do columns E, F, G, and H the same way. Resize that to 75. Take a moment to do that. And I'm going to show you how to highlight a group of cells. I'm going to put my mouse right over the E, or group of columns. I'm going to left click, and holding that left click down, I'm going to drag to the right to highlight all those columns. And then I'm going to resize those columns and make those 75. Some formatting points. Columns with a similar type of data inside of them should be sized the same. Text of varying lengths should be left aligned. Oftentimes, if we had another subheadings down this first column, those would also be left aligned. But because these are dates, we've centered aligned them. And speaking of date and formatting our numbers, we can change how numbers appear. I'm going to highlight column A, come over to the Format tab, select Number. And you may not see all the options I see. See, for date, I have some different date options for me already available to me. I can select more formats. So if you're not seeing one of these formats, you can come over to More Formats, drop down, just drag your mouse over More Date and Time Formats, and it gives you a whole bunch of options. I'm going to change it to August, the month, and the day. And then I'm going to hit Apply. Notice how my number formatting changed. I'm going to do the same thing to reformat the numbers in columns E, F, and G. I'm going to go to Format, Number, and we're going to format this as financial. Notice that negative number, that parentheses, that indicates a negative number. It's I know in school we learned something different about parentheses and how to handle them, but right now we're talking about financial, and I'll explain more about that in class. So I'll explain that further when we get to it in class. And that is the instructions that we're starting off with. A couple of things, and I will test you on this, that I want you to know and understand and watch at this point, and then go back and practice. So our spending diary is cut off. Well, we want to select the cell range A1 through H1. So in order to select the cell A1, I click in the middle of the cell. I don't click on the A because that would highlight the column. And I don't click on the 1 because that would select the whole row. What I am going to do is go right in the middle of that cell, select it, and select it by left clicking, and then I'm going to drag to H1. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to Merge Cells. I'm going to merge all those cells, and we'll make sure that's center aligned, and we have it vertically aligned in the middle of the cell. So it makes a nice title for us. I can also give it a nice light color if I wanted to, so it really stands out. A few other things I want to show you. Let me create a series of numbers here. If I grab the fill handle, it's going to copy whatever I have. The little bottom corner, so see the black plus that appears when I grab that? That copies numbers. So let me show you something. Let me go back and do a few things. If all I had was the 1 and I copied it, it would copy the 1 down for me. What I had done previously was I had also put the 2, and I grabbed both of them. I highlighted both the 1 and the 2, and then I selected the fill handle, and it automatically said, okay, she had a 1 and a 2. She's looking to produce a series. This is called a series. Interestingly enough, if I undo that, say my series skipped a number, it would do all the odd numbers. I could put in a date. Notice how it recognizes the date, the format, and it would copy that series down also. I think that's all we're going to do today. Make sure yours looks very similar to mine. You will be handing these in submitting them in class. Thank you.